Hi, hello, welcome back to my channel, Govind English Teacher. Today, a greatest outstanding and excellent expert in English language. He is none other than JVL Narsarosar, and he's a retired English teacher, an eminent speaker, an excellent writer also. And now he is with us, and he's going to share his teaching experience. He's going to give us inspiration, some motivation to mobilize, to inculcate, influence with his experience. Today he's with us, and welcome back to my channel, sir. Hi, hearty welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk over how to teach poetry or how to teach poem. So regarding this a particular thing, and I'm going to ask some questions, and our the expert is going to respond, and he's going to share his knowledge regarding how to teach poetry. The first questions are, sir, how can I help the students analyze and understand the underlying theme in a poem?
Thank you very much, Anandragar, for inviting me this exciting subject, how to teach a poem. Actually, one of my professors, whom I followed for many years, Professor K. Anandan, told me that actually we call it the death of a poet. That means once a poet has written a poem, we have to assume that the poet is dead. It may be surprising to know that because once he has written a poem, it is left to the interpretations of the readers who read the poem. It is beyond the poet who has written the poem. That is, in other words, it means that a poem is always being interpreted in multiple ways. If 1,000 readers read a poem, it may be understood in 1,000 ways. That is the beauty of the poem. It is not so in the case of prose. Its meaning is straightforward, and actually it is explicit. But the meaning of a poem is implicit. That means you can understand it in different ways. For example, I say, we had a poem called The Death and Kangaroo in 9th class, I think. Actually, for children, it may be a conversation between a kangaroo and a duck. But if we go deep into it, it means that we can achieve what we want with the help of others in many ways. All of us are not perfect. We are imperfect. Even with our imperfections, if you take the help from others, we can achieve what we want. This is the beauty of poetry.
Okay, thank you, sir. Second question, sir. What strategies can I use to teach students about different poetic devices and their effect on overall meaning of a poem?
Again, I want to stress that the teacher never try to explain the poem, but he should try to extract the meaning of the poem from the students. He may use many ways. For example, he may give the meaning of difficult words. He may ask the students to identify the difficult words. He may write them on the blackboard or whiteboard, whatever board it is. But he never tried to explain the poem. That is the first strategy teachers should have. Most of teachers have a tendency to explain the poem. That's the problem with the present teachers or even the past teachers. Well, actually, that should not be the case. A poem never be explained by the teacher. It should be left to the understanding of the students. For this, you can have many devices. For example, you may ask to identify the rhyming words. You may ask to identify the images. You may ask them to identify the metaphor and other figures of speech. But don't explain that this is something and this is something. Oh, the children will come to know that these are figures of speech, these are images, these are onomatopoeia, and these are alliteration. There are many poetic devices in poetry. They will come to know. Don't explain everything explicitly. They will come to know implicitly.
Thank you, sir. How can I encourage students to express their personal interpretations of a poem while respecting differing viewpoints?
Oh, that's a good question. That's the beauty of poetry. For example, that in order to have that type of interpretation from the children, you have to ask questions like expressive questions, so that there is no right or wrong answers for that. It is left to their interpretations. How do you understand from your point of view? You ask one student, you may ask the same question to another student, because two students don't understand the poem in the same manner. They understand it differently, because we are all capable of multiple interpretations. That's why we are giving respect to others' opinions. At the same time, we are expressing our opinion.
So the fourth question, sir, what are some creative activities to help students write their own poem and experiments with various forms and styles?
Actually, a teacher can make his students write poems very easily. For example, you can write something on the board with a rhyme. For example, you will give one line on the blackboard or whiteboard, and you may ask the children to complete the second line on his own. That is very possible. Actually, these days, you are a very rhyming teacher. There are many rhyming teachers in our class, students also in our class. So that is possible. In my class, I experimented with most of my students. They're able to write some good rhyming words. If we give one line, they're able to complete another line very easily. Sometimes they are more creative than us. Most of us believe our children are capable of writing poems. Don't think that you and I can write poems. Our children are also capable of writing poems. Of course, all our children may not be able to write poems, but some of our children can be able to write, may be able to write poems. So we should encourage them. We should identify them, and then we should encourage them to write poems.
Yes, thank you, sir. Next question, sir. How do I teach students to identify and appreciate the use of figurative language in poetry?
Yeah. The beauty of poetry is all figurative language. Unless, of course, you explain, this is some figures of speech, this is a metaphor, this is simile, and so on. They can't understand. Of course, they can understand, but they don't know the terms. So as a teacher of English, you should make them understand the terms also, so that you may ask them to write poems on their own using these terms, like, her face is like the moon. That is simile. Her face is the moon. What is the difference between here? Here we say that something is like something. In the second stage, we don't say that this is this. There is not a difference between the moon and her face. Both are the same. That is metaphor. And her face is like the moon, that is simile. If you start using these terms and explaining them, the children will come to use them in their own poems. Even you and I are the product of this type of teaching. And of course, some people are more creative, or some teachers are more creative or poetic, like you and of course me. And of course, all other students are not like that. But some of our students are capable of writing poetry. We should encourage them. We should, by teaching these methods. Like alliteration is also there. We call it slash in Telugu. That means one word gives one meaning in one place. For example, I saw a saw and such a saw I never saw. So in one place, saw is verb. In another place, saw is a tool. So in that way, you can teach different devices in the classroom, so that it can be interesting, meaningful, and useful to our learners.
Okay, sir. Last question, sir. What role does rhyme and meter play in poetry? And how can I teach students to recognize and analyze these elements?
Okay, as far as meter is concerned, it is a difficult task even for me or you. Because these days we are not resorting to meter, because it's very, very difficult. So it's better for us to go in for rhyme and rhythm. That is more easy and more creative and more useful for us. It does not mean that I am not discouraging meter. Even today, there are some poets in English and in Telugu or in mother tongue, they are capable of writing poems with meter. And there are other poets who are able to write without meter. But for our children, in the initial stages, it's better for them to write rhyme and rhythm instead of meter. When they go to higher stages like intermediate, degree, and post-graduation, it's better for us, for them to attempt to write with meter. Of course, as a teacher, we should know all these things. We have to learn the meter, but it's not so easy to teach the meter.
Yes.
Great writers like Sarojini Naidu and Ravindranath Tagore never used any rhyme and rhythm. They wrote in even he got the Nobel Prize. So, of course, I'm discouraged, but Robert Frost, Keats, and they have written in rhythm and also in meter. So, both are possible. So, you can choose your own way, but it must be interesting, it must be useful. But the aim of poetry may not be all the time give you information, or it may be to teach, but most of the time it is to give entertainment, it is give to make us happy, and the main purpose of it is to console us, or it is to entertain us. Sometimes it may teach and teach us also. Thank you. Okay.
Yes, sir. Modern poetry goes and flows in a free verse. So because poetry is a divine form, it comes from in a delightful way. So I have to put into best words in a best order is the poetry, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for coming my session and making everything recording. That the topic is very difficult task, even though you made it very clear, very crystal clear. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for attending my session, and thank you for your great experience. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir.
Govindra,
Namaste.
thank you very much for giving me this opportunity again. Thank you very much.